There was a fascinating discussion on H-1B visas that came on X over the weekend. Now, I'm not sure if legacy media picked up on it at all. And if they did, I'm sure they mischaracterized it. I did see some of the leftist publications online trying to make it into some sort of mega civil war. So, what's an H-1B visa? In the most basic view, they're visas issued to foreign workers to work in the US. They're often touted as visas for high tech workers to allow the US to fill positions they can't fill locally. And we'll delve a bit more into the H-1Bs in a moment. So, what happened? Well, over the weekend, Elon Musk raised a point about how critical H-1Bs were for American competitiveness. This caused a lot of pushback from the rank and file. Vivek Ramaswamy attempted to add context, but he had a bit of a misstep in terms of critiquing American culture that caused the argument to spill over and become very visible. Now, there's a huge gulf between what H-1Bs are touted as versus how they actually play out. Now, the fictionalized story is that tech companies struggle to fill positions, then place an H-1B request to siphon off top-tier tech persons from other countries. Then nobody loses a job in the US. The US economy is improved due to increased output. Now, what I just described does happen, but it doesn't appear to be the norm. More typical is that the companies put out an H-1B request at salaries that are actually below market for jobs that Americans are actually applying for. These H-1Bs typically are farmed out through companies that know how to work the bureaucracy as opposed to being anything to do with merit. Once approved, middleman firms recruit from the countries where English is widely spoken. Typically, this ends up being India, but we do get people from China, Hong Kong, etc. Now, these middlemen companies operate very similar to how temp agencies work, where they take a portion of the salary to them in exchange for finding the worker, and that's for the duration of the contract. Now, right now, based on a lot of things I was reading over the weekend, there are numerous anecdotes of employers of high tech firms being told to prepare, telling their employees to prepare to train their own replacements. And then a crew of H-1B visa holders show up shortly thereafter. A very famous one occurred to this with Disney. An animation shop had this very thing happen to them. It turned into a lawsuit. Now, H-1B visa holders must stay with their employer, and if they don't meet expectations, the employer can curtail the visa or prevent its renewal. There are anecdotes of U.S. employees making use of this fact, having their H-1B holders work excessive hours under poor conditions. An employer of an H-1B employee typically pays a rate under market. These jobs are often fillable by qualified American employees. Now, some people are reporting that H-1B headhunter firms are actually, in some cases, don't know how prevalent this is, but they are actually training unqualified applicants how to pass the job application process for high-tech jobs that they can't actually do. And they lack the credentials or the experience for the job, but they're essentially taught the keywords and phrases and basically a handful of exercises they can do in order to pass themselves off as qualified. Now, worse than what we've already talked about is that the H-1B database is available for the public, and a lot of the jobs being filled by foreigners via the H-1B have nothing to do with the publicly stated mission of getting the other country's best and brightest for our high-tech jobs. We can see in the database that there are H-1B fills out there for residential plumbers, line cooks, retail sales, and even teaching positions in schools. So part of the cover people use to try to make people not pay attention to the H-1B program is to say, well, the number is really limited. It's a small program. There's only 85,000 H-1Bs approved per year. And this is true. However, the general scope of each visa is 3 years, and they are routinely extended for an additional 3 years, and there are many paths for additional extensions. The current number of H1B visa holders in the US numbers around 800,000. Tech companies are pushing to eliminate the current 85,000 per year cap. Now, not mentioned in most arguments are what are known as L1B visas. L1Bs are used by foreign companies who are moving into the US to start up their business in this country. The idea is to use the L1Bs to transfer their workers here to their new business in order to get things rolling. However, a lot of these L1B companies are kind of being used as almost a shell corporation where the workers are brought in and then essentially loaned out to other companies in very similar manner as the H1B, or kind of like the tech or temp agency, like I mentioned earlier. The current number of L1Bs in the country are 1.5 million, but that's estimated. It could be more. So, what caused this all to come into the open? Well, late arriving tech entrepreneurs jumped onto the mega bandwagon when they realized that the Harris plan for the upcoming 4 years would make their situation very bad. When it appeared Trump could actually win, they began throwing their money behind him in the last months of the election. Now, these tech CEOs are very pro H1B, and most are pretty much open borders advocates. Then there are tech CEOs like Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. They want the H1Bs to expand, but only if they follow the mission as advertised, using them to scoop up the world's best and brightest where there are no American candidates. The bulk of MAGA leans toward a massive overhaul of the immigration system. What does that mean? Well, I would say almost all of them would accept that illegal immigration needs to be treated as a crime. Most would end the welcome of the lottery system in favor of some form of select system or merit system. I think the biggest question for people looking at immigration reform is, why don't American citizens have a say in who gets to come to our country? Why is it up to some bureaucrat? Now, some in the mega movement are looking for a massive slowdown or possibly an immigration hiatus. And I'm sure some on the margin would like to see a end to immigration. Now, if members of a group differ as much between saying an infinite amount versus a lot less or possibly even none, this was bound to come out. Now, for the most part, from what I've seen, I think it was a very useful and informative debate. I learned a lot. I think a lot of people learned a lot. Mind you, you always get some name calling out there because when something gets heated, the idiots come in. But I don't think that was the bulk of what was happening. In terms of perspective, the 2016 Trump administration attempted to fix this problem, but it was blocked in the courts. The main fix that the Trump administration has suggested is that H1Bs be ranked by how high the salary is to be paid. Thus, it would encourage those who need talent to outbid those who are just looking for cheap labor fills. They would eliminate all lottery elements of the system, and there would be more checks on employers to make sure that the visas were being used as stated. During Trump's first term, the number of H1Bs denied increased markedly. In short, unless Trump has changed course, reforms are likely to happen. Vivek Ramaswamy clumsily critiqued American culture by noting we celebrate the prom queen and the football player over math nerds and science geeks. His exact phrasing may have been a little bit off, but he's not wrong. And it certainly does illuminate the problem. Why is there any shortage of qualified, exceptional people in a merit based society? And why do we need to go abroad to find replacements? Now, he blamed our culture, but I think the blame should fall squarely on our school system. Everybody knows the system has failed, and we've been watching it fail my entire life. Every 5 to 10 years, there's some great lament about how bad things are, and then 5 to 10 years later, we discover things are actually much worse. However, fixing education is an entirely different topic that maybe I'll broach at another time. So, comments below. Were you aware of the H1B visas? Did you hear about the debate? Did you follow it at all? What did you get from it? What is legacy media saying, if anything at all? Do you have an opinion on H1B visas? Do you have an opinion on immigration? What's your viewpoint? What needs to be done? Let me know in the comments below. Please smash the like button. If YouTube algorithms brought you here and you're not a regular subscriber, look at my titles. I get into a lot of things. There's stuff there worth subscribing to. Please subscribe. And if you know someone who might find this useful, please share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.